I want to eat to feel good while also achieving the goals physically that I want to achieve. The only person you have left to live with at the end of the day is yourself. The only person that you're coming back to at the end of the day is you. And so if you make all these little micro decisions in your life and in your day even that didn't make you feel happy, confident within yourself, confident towards your path of growth, you're going to go to bed at night upset with yourself.
Our guest today is Brittany Brunck, an online wellness coach, entrepreneur, and ex-bodybuilder who shares the behind the scenes of pursuing the perfect body while dealing with trauma, feeling disconnected, bloated, and stuck in self-destructive patterns and self-judgment. She shares the exact mindset and methods that helped her to heal from within and guide over 1,000 women to reduce stress, rebuild confidence, and live with intention through holistic, sustainable wellness.
I absolutely destroyed my gut health. So how I felt internally, I feel reflected externally as well. It all came crumbling down when I experienced all the bloating again. And so I had such bad body dysmorphia. When you hit that wall where you're looking at yourself and you're wondering what is all of this for, that will make you question everything that you're doing too. And obviously if you're living every day like that, that's just, you're not happy in life.
What was the mistake that set you back the most? What habit has contributed to most of your success? What do you suggest to someone who is ready to change and they want to change, but they just don't believe in themselves?
If you don't believe in yourself,
welcome to the show.
thank you so much for having me.
I wanted to kick this off by asking that in your social media and in your brand and in your messaging, you talk a lot about balance and sustainable life. What do you mean by that, and why do you find this important to mention to people who are watching your videos?
I first started really hyperfixating on balance because I was in an all or nothing mindset from bodybuilding to then being bloated and eating whatever I wanted, doing an all-in diet, and then back into bodybuilding. And during my second round of bodybuilding, which then led into my third, I really realized that when you live more balanced, when you're able to work out, live life, enjoy time with friends and family, still manage work, things that you enjoy doing, your everyday life, it makes your routine and your life more sustainable in general. And I think that sustainability, if your ultimate goal is to be healthy and feel good from the inside out, you have to live sustainably. It's so important to just make sure that everything you're doing is connecting you to living that life of wellness, if that's your end goal.
So when we talk about balance, what are the different kind of components that you consider or you think that someone should consider to balance out?
I think it really just depends on somebody's life and what they want for themselves. So if their ultimate goal is to feel healthy, then I think that nutrition is going to be important. And I think that the small, minuscule habits that you have throughout your day, those are small things that you should be looking at and focusing on and prioritizing. So that's going to be your nutrition, your workouts, things like how much sleep are you getting at night, how much screen time maybe that you're getting at night. And from there, then you're able to start adding in more and more habits, healthy habits that you can start stacking to have more of a balanced life. But also things like enjoying time with your family and enjoying time outside, enjoying nature. Those are also things that kind of constitute into balance.
I remember when I realized that wellness is more complex than just like fitness, workouts, and diet. There's like so many other things that contribute to someone's wellness. So when did you realize that there is more to wellness than the workout and the diet? Like, was there something specific in your life that happened, or something that kind of like was a catalyst for you to make that kind of mindset shift?
Yeah, It was definitely when I experienced tremendous bloating and I absolutely destroyed my gut health. So after my first competition, leading up to my competition, I was, and I do not recommend this to anybody, by the way, I was eating
Competing or?
what I did in order to compete. I, for the last 2 months of prep, was eating under 800 calories a day while also burning over 700 calories through cardio and then still weight training 6 times a week. So it was very intense for 8 weeks. And even during peak week, people always say you need a carb load, you need to eat more food during that peak week in order to fuel your muscles, which is true. Because I wasn't lean enough, I dropped calories to 500 calories and was still doing the cardio and all the things. So from there, I stepped on stage. Right after stepping on stage, I was experiencing tremendous bloating because I was wanting to start reincorporating and reintroducing all of the different types of foods that I wanted to eat because I had been so restricted for so many months. And it was terrible for my gut. After doing so much more research after the fact, obviously, I realized that you really need to make sure that your nutrition is slow and changes incrementally rather than everything all at once changing. Mm-hmm. So when you're, for example, when I was competing, the first thing I had, I think might have been a cookie or a donut. So much processed foods after having such a strict non-processed diet, your body is wondering, WTF are you doing? Because it's like, you need to slowly integrate new foods into your body first. And then after that, back to your question, was realizing that I had this all or nothing mentality from bodybuilding and then into my experience with bloating and my gut health issues. It was all or nothing of I'm going to eat whatever I want. Mm-hmm. And then after that, realizing that neither is sustainable for life to be happy and healthy, I started working on time blocking my schedule. I started wanting to focus more on school, on the work that I was doing, both in my business, but also my job that I had at the time. And I also really wanted to pour into my friendships and my relationship with my family. And that was something that I had a really hard time coming to terms with. Was I love bodybuilding, I love working out, but I cannot do that and sustain everything in my life. So that's where I really started to dive into the world of balance and wellness overall.
You mentioned gut and that you destroy your gut throughout this process. And then after that, it took quite a bit of time for you again to introduce the food that you wanted to eat because you were just, your body rejected it, mm-hmm. right? And I know that like your gut is pretty much your second brain. Absolutely. And people who experience gut issues is not just a physical symptom, but also an emotional one. So some people experience anxiety, depression, other different kind of form of challenges. Like, did you experience any of that, or it was mainly just physical?
It was definitely mental too. I had tremendous amounts of brain fog. I had been depressed before, but never depressed with links to my gut health. And this was absolutely depression linked to my gut health. And I remember experiencing so much sense of lost direction. And I was having existential crises at one point. And that's when I really realized that something was very off and I needed to change. And I remember there was one day in particular, I called my sister and was like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And that's when you hit that wall where you're looking at yourself and you're wondering, what is all of this for? That will make you question everything that you're doing too. And obviously, if you're living every day like that, that's just, you're not happy in life. And that's when you really need to change things up.
Would you say that everything else was kind of like on point in your life? I don't know exactly when you started your business. Was it also around the same time as you were competing, or it was before or after?
I started my business while I had started competing, but I never made that my main priority. until after I healed my gut health and was really living that balanced life.
Okay. So you already had like an idea which path you would like to walk. And as you were competing, all this kind of like bad stuff happened to your gut, and then it created those kind of emotions and like brain fog and maybe fatigue as well. And you were just not really feeling yourself, and you started to question everything. So was it completely because what you did to your gut, or was there like any other signs as well in your life that maybe you are like not walking the right path?
When my gut started having a lot of issues, I started just observing everything else that was going on in my life. And I was observing my relationships, my friendships, what I felt was pouring into my life, and what I also felt was kind of pulling me away from the direction in which I wanted to move into, and the direction of growth that I really wanted to walk into. So I had always, for a long time, wanted to grow in life mentally and make a big difference in helping people find what they love, and helping other people live well and live happy and live healthy. So when I started noticing that there were activities that I was doing or people that I was spending a lot of time with that didn't make me feel the most happy or even secure in myself, I started deciding maybe I'm going to take a few steps back away from these people and things that I was doing.
And did you already have that kind of awareness before you experienced these gut issues, or the gut issue was the one that made you pause and reflect?
There was one other time, and I was in high school actually. So growing up, I feel like I need to give some background on this. Growing up, I had always felt like I was just kind of living every single day, sleepwalking through life in a sense, to where I had to just show up to these places and do these things. And then as soon as I got home, it was like, it almost just felt like a new environment that I needed to continue to adapt to. And it was like I was living in survival mode in a sense. And whenever I had time to be alone, it was like I would just sit in my bed and either release any emotions that I was experiencing, but I could not ever put a name to and understand what I was feeling. But it just felt like a lot of heaviness. Fast forward, when I was 15, I was raped by my first boyfriend. And at that point, I had no idea what had happened. But a year later was when everything started kind of spiraling, and I was getting flashbacks, and it was pretty messy. But I was finally realizing there's something wrong, and the way that I'm living is not my purpose in life. And the things that I'm doing, the people I'm spending time with, these are all things that I just kind of fell into rather than chose for myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it makes total sense. And also, so it seems like that you started to like look inside, look within, like way earlier than most people.
Absolutely.
Right? Do you think that the majority of the population does the same thing? Or do you think that most people are like what you mentioned, that they are just sleepwalking through life?
I can't speak for everybody, but because I've lived it and because I experienced sleepwalking through life, I feel like a lot of people get put into environments growing up and in their upbringing to where they feel like they have to be in survival mode, where they don't feel safe and secure enough to be able to express emotions freely, be able to speak their mind freely, be able to share opinions freely. And I think that ends up putting people in a box. And when you're put in this box where you have to conform to other people's standards and what other people need you to be, but you're not choosing that for yourself, it causes you to kind of just move with whatever the day holds, rather than making the conscious decision of, I want to be doing these things every single day. I want to be experiencing these things every day. Yeah,
you pretty much kind of mold yourself into the environment that's shaped around you. But life sooner or later is going to give you the opportunity to get yourself out of that situation. But then after that, it's totally up to you whether you are going to act on it or you are not going to act on it. And unfortunately, I can speak from experience and that most people that I know, they are afraid to step away from what's familiar to them, because the moment they step away, they are going to embark on a journey into the unknown.
Yeah.
And this is where your brain is just like, no, don't do that, because your mind and your ego is there to protect you, right? And that's not familiar to you, right?
Absolutely.
And even people tend to choose the things that's familiar to them and not what's good to them, right? Can you pinpoint anything in your life where you felt that you chose something out of comfort and fear instead of, let's say, like applying a growth mindset?
How long we got? Yes. I think most recently, this one's, it's so important and it's so pivotal in my life, but I've never talked about it publicly, but I do think it's so important. There was the time most recently when I decided to stay in relationships, close relationships with people who really enjoyed partying, who really enjoyed being social, always needed people around, who clearly didn't know and have awareness of any shadows within themselves. And at first, when I was introduced to this group of people, these new experiences, it was kind of like, wow, these are all really new things. This is a lot of change. This could mean growth for me. This could mean a lot of learning and understanding other people, which 100% absolutely it did. As time went on, though, 1 year turned to 1.5 years, and it felt like a snowball of, okay, here's an opportunity for you to walk away. Are you going to take the opportunity, or are you going to continue to stay in this? And every single time I came into those crossroads, I felt there's just something else I need to learn here. And there's just something more that I could do to help the people around me, or there's something more that I could give. And I continue to choose that path of continuing to walk with people in drinking every weekend, partying, doing all of the things. Then there was one day I finally decided I am the one in control of my life. And I need to remember that no matter what anybody else is thinking, no matter what anybody else is experiencing, the only person you have left to live with at the end of the day is yourself. The only person that you're coming back to at the end of the day is you. And so if you make all these little micro decisions in your life and in your day even that didn't make you feel happy, confident within yourself, confident towards your path of growth, you're going to go to bed at night upset with yourself. And I started noticing every day I would go to bed and I would just be a little bit more discontent with the way that I was living. And I had fallen into patterns of smoking again, and even doing things like that didn't feel good for me. I think I like to notice different synchronicities happening in my life. And I remember there was one time that there was one moment where I really started hearing therapy talk again, going to therapy. But I had done traditional talk therapy for years. And I, at that point, was thinking, I don't want to go back to talk therapy. I want to try something different. And I had heard about hypnotherapy. And this is actually something I love talking about now, because I've been seeing a hypnotherapist for over a year, and it has absolutely transformed my life. And so when I was hearing these synchronicities coming up, talking about therapy, going to therapy, doing deeper work within yourself, I was a little questioning and a little bit skeptical, but I found somebody that I had aligned with in my goals, And I started working with a hypnotherapist. And I think that that's when I really started deep diving into what changes can I make today? What growth can I make today to continue to push that needle forward in the direction that I want to take my life, because I'm choosing it for myself.
But the way you ended up making that decision is by being real honest with yourself that you feel discontent. When you go to sleep, you feel discontent, the way you live your life and the things that you do, even though that I know from experience as well that in the moment it feels great, right? Because you're surrounded by fun people, and then you feel that you're living the life, you are just doing exactly what everybody else is doing. So like, what's the harm in this one? But at the end of the day, as you said, like, you have to live with yourself. That's the only constant in your life. And if you already have this feeling that something is off, that's already a sign that, okay, maybe I just need to take a pause here just to evaluate whether this is the path I would like to continue or not. So that's what you were doing. And then after that, what was the thing that made you reach for help? Because where I see also a lot of people struggle, including myself in the past as well, that I don't know, I think it's probably coming from ego and pride. I did not want to admit that I need help. You know, only those people need help who are not in control. And clearly I am in control. So like therapy, who needs that, right? So what helped you to come to a realization that you may need some external help to move forward?
Yeah. I think that everything starts with awareness. Change itself starts with awareness. And so when I reached a point that I realized, looking in the mirror, I was unhappy with what I saw.
So it was like a physical reflection, or was it like a body image, or was just that like how you felt about life in general?
How I felt internally, I feel reflected externally as well. So seeing myself physically, I may have looked amazing because of how lean I was, but I wasn't eating all the time. I wasn't having consistent meals. I was unhappy in the way I felt looking in the mirror even. And it didn't feel like who I was authentically. And at that point, I didn't even know who I was authentically. And so that awareness alone of recognizing this is not okay, that made me decide, okay, there's something here that I want to uncover, but I need to just observe everything going on in my life first. So that's when I started going to these events and kind of seeing, okay, how am I showing up to these places? How are other people showing up to these places? And what conversations are we having? I started just evaluating things. And I remember there was one time in particular where I asked people around me, how do you feel when you're alone? And that's a pretty deep question to bring to a party. I don't know how they felt about it, but I remember one of the girls looking at me and she said, why do you think we do this? We don't want to be alone. And I remember for me, that just woke something up in me. And hearing that made me realize, if all we have at the end of the day is us, if you are the only person in control of everything that you do every single day, why are you going to choose to do things that don't necessarily bring the best out of you and spend so much time with other people looking externally for what you should have within you? So the happiness that I was looking for outside of myself, at parties, drinking, smoking, going on boats, I needed to find that happiness within myself first. And if going on boats and things like that still made me happy, absolutely go do them. And you should do them. But you have to have that happiness within you first. So after making those observations, after coming to that realization of myself, I realized that I had a lot of fears that were blocking me from wanting to move forward and wanting to really embrace this change that was coming. And I was scared. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what the first step was in order to move forward and heal and live the life that I wanted to live for myself. And so that's when someone actually looked at me and was pretty angry with me and said, "You need therapy." And they tried to say this in kind of like
an offensive way.
Exactly. And I looked at them, I said, "You know what?
You're right.
You're totally right." And that's where it started. And I'm honestly, I could not be more grateful for even situations like that, because you know that when someone says something like that to you, they mean it in an offensive way, but they're also projecting a reflection of themselves too. And so for me, it was like, it's like if you see that within yourself, but you're not going to do anything about it, but you also see that within me, I'm going to make the decision to do something about it.
So that was your like almost like a coping mechanism that you had, that you wanted to distract yourself by going to all of these gatherings and events and partying and boats and all of that, so you don't have to really sit with yourself and face the actual reality and your own fears and insecurities, right? And I think so many people can relate, but not so many are so honest with themselves to actually make a change. I interviewed this guy a couple of weeks ago. His name is Mikey. Like, highly recommend that episode to everyone. Like, he spit so much wisdom there that that was one of the most impactful conversations I had in the recent months. And he said something about bodybuilding. So steering the conversation back a little bit, that most people who are in the gym, they are there because they hate themselves. And they are there because they're insecure, and they are not doing it because of act of love for themselves. What do you think about that?
A lot of people become resentful of the gym when they enter with that mindset. And I think that's a very common reason and a common way that people do start working out. And a lot of people, they hate what they see in the mirror, and they say, okay, I'm going to go to the gym because I hate myself. But even saying something like that can be reframed just a little bit. Instead of saying, I'm going to go to the gym because I hate myself, even if you just start saying to yourself, I'm going to go to the gym because I love my body and I deserve to feel happy both inside and out, that's going to be such a small way that you can go to the gym and not feel resentful. That's actually something that I work with my clients in, is just reframing small things and creating habits in that lifestyle that you truly want.
Yeah, do things out of love, not out of fear and hate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge. That's like one of probably the most important like reframing that you can give to the clients that you work with. How do they respond to that? Like, do they actually cognitively able to process that? Or they're like, oh, this sounds amazing, but are they actually able to embody this teaching? Or do you see any kind of struggles that they face in this?
I love this. I think that with anybody creating change, you're going to have resistance to it, because as you were saying, neurologically, our brains are programmed for survival. If there's change, our bodies and our brains are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We can't do this. This is away from the routine. And so if you start building unhealthy habits and living an unhealthy life, then changing that, even though you know in your heart that you're making a healthy decision to change, your brain is still thinking, no, this is foreign, this isn't new, we can't do this. Or this isn't right, we can't do this. And we have to make sure that you feel safe first in order to then move into the changes that you want to be making. So I actually have a lot of clients that I had them start listening to affirmations. And I've had clients come back to me telling me that they have cried listening to these affirmations because it's words that they've never even told themselves. They've never heard from their families. Their families don't show emotions like this. It's just completely new to them. And they've never felt so uplifted and so supported from anybody, not even themselves. And this is a real thing. This is a real problem. So in order to come to that place where you feel safe and secure enough, you have to first give it to yourself And you first have to want that change through awareness. And you have to be aware of the things that you're doing in your life to ultimately call in that change and accept that change and move forward.
And when they listen to these affirmations, is it their own voice that's speaking to them, or this is like someone else being recorded telling them that you are beautiful, you are good enough, you are loved, or how does this work?
It's just a recording of either myself or a YouTube video, and it's someone saying, I am beautiful, I am loved, I am whole, I'm at peace, but much slower pace, fluctuations in their words. And what I usually tell my clients is just repeat after them. There's no pressure. You don't have to believe it. Just repeat after them. Because even hearing it and then repeating after that, those words, they make a very, very big impact.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I've been thinking about this quite a lot over the past couple of weeks. I had this dream a few weeks ago that the secret to change is napping. And I woke up and like, what does that even mean? Then I started like researching on the topic a little bit. And then what I found is that the best way, the easiest way to reprogram yourself and your subconscious is when it's in theta. And it happens twice, when you go to sleep and when you wake up. But that's when you're the most perceptive to reinstall some of those changing those unserving beliefs to beliefs that are going to be serving you. And if you think about it, when you take a nap, like that's what happens as well, right? So instead of having like two opportunities at night and in the morning, but you could also have it again, like when you take a nap, when you are falling asleep and when you are waking up. So kind of like you double the amount of surface area where you can reinstall those kind of beliefs. So I was thinking just to record my own voice with the affirmations, with the beliefs that I want to install in myself, because so many people have said that this actually works. Mm-hmm. So was there like any, I don't know, like very outstanding change that you have seen in your clients who practice that beyond the verbal affirmation that, yes, I like it and it works?
Absolutely. There are so many practices that I have my clients do, and everyone is so individual and unique. So what sticks with someone might not stick with somebody else. And so that's where we work one-on-one together and really figure out what's going to work for you in your lifestyle, what's feasible, but also something that you feel excited to do every day. So if it's not affirmations, then maybe it's journaling, and maybe it's reading your journal back there's like a visualization that I have most of my clients do too, where they write down all of the things that they want for themselves in 6 months. And then they write down the characteristic traits in the present tense of, I am doing this every day. I am, feeling this way. I look this way. And if you read that, I was going to say something about napping. If you read that morning and night, then your brain is in that theta state to where it's really ingrained in your mind. And there are so many ways that you can get into that theta state too, through hypnosis. A lot of people say that they come out of massages with crazy visions and downloads. And that's also because you're just in such a relaxed state that you are open to receiving. And so something that we can all do every single day is just take a second to calm down, take a deep breath, and center yourself for a second, just for a second. And you can drop in, imagine yourself above your head even, looking down at your body. And that in that state, you can relax to a point where you are in that brainwave of theta, and you can receive so many downloads. You can receive so much insight, essentially, is what downloads are for those listening. You can receive so much insight on problems that you are needing to solve, on decisions that you're needing to make, on change and direction that you're wanting to go into. But most of us, especially in the world and society that we live in, are constantly on go, 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 because we are stressed. We aren't eating foods that serve us. We are stressed about money, wanting to do better, and
We want to prove ourselves, want to show that we are worthy.
Exactly. And when we just take a second to ignore all of that, then we're able to really drop in and create real sustainable change within ourselves.
But that's really, really hard, especially when you are in survival mode and then you are just in this go, 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 hustle, 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 hustle mindset. Because even when you take like a second of break, you kind of feel that like, okay, I'm breaking my progress, I'm breaking my pattern, I'm losing my momentum. And the moment you feel that, that's exactly when you need to do that. Because I can speak from experience that it's never going to lead to anything good. Eventually, if not you who is going to stop yourself, life is going to stop you and is going to make you stop, sit down, reflect, and reevaluate, right?
Yes.
And I love that you are incorporating all of these teachings in your methods, because I think it's fairly unusual. Because when I look at other fitness coaches and health influencers, it's mainly about exercise, diet, and sleep started to get like more awareness as well. But I haven't seen so many health coaches talking about the work within. There is a bit of like a mindset part of it, but not to this level as you are explaining it. If you look at some other people's methods, like this is a chance just to like, throw some stones at other people. You don't have to mention names. Like, how much more effective do you think it's for your clients to achieve great results by combining the external with the internal versus just focusing on the external?
I'm willing to be vulnerable here for a second.
Please do.
I used to be that coach. I used to be that coach that was like, the science says that if you cut calories, you're going to lose weight. So we're going to do that. The science says that if you do more cardio, you're going to lose the weight and you're going to be able to stay lean, especially if you're also incorporating, movement of weightlifting and whatnot. So let's do that. And I was strictly following what bodybuilder science said. Then I had my journey and I started going through tremendous transformation. And especially, I think the tipping point was when I was bloated. This was definitely the tipping point, because even my schedule, it was like, wake up at 4:30 in the morning, I go to the gym. At 7 a.m., I'm back home cooking all of my meals for the day, meal prepping everything, also eating processed foods. Then I make sure to pack my bags. I'm on my way to work by 8 o'clock, 8:30. I get to work by 9, and I'm working until 1, 2, maybe even 4 p.m. sometimes. And then I go into my schooling. I make sure that I'm studying all basically through the night. Sometimes my classes wouldn't end until 7 or 10 p.m. And by 10 p.m. I come home. Maybe I have to do some homework and I do it all again the next morning. And it was like go, 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 go. No time for anything else. No time for anybody else, not even myself. And so, yes, I was moving the needle in other ways, but it wasn't helping me. And it wasn't helping my physique either. I was so bloated and upset and I felt like shit. So through that, realizing that and recognizing that I needed to slow down, that's when I started really incorporating that with my clients too. And once I started incorporating the slowing down, caring about what's going on internally first, and then focusing on really the externals and how you can start incorporating workouts and everything into your lifestyle, that's when my clients started seeing the most changes and the most drastic transformations.
You mentioned a couple of things. You already mentioned journaling, meditation, therapy, hypnotherapy. What are some of the other modalities that you feel it works really well for you? Obviously, everybody is a different case.
I started doing breath work as well. And that's just another way to get into a meditation too. So I studied psychology in college. I minored in psychology. And through my psychology studies, obviously because this is so interesting to me, I've created my work around this topic. when I was in psychology studying all of the things, I really wanted to find out why people were feeling stressed, anxious, disassociated, and depressed. And so I had a group, what do they call it? We did a research study, and we found that when you spend more time in nature, at least even just 30 minutes a day, you decrease levels of stress, anxiety, and depression tremendously. Do this for 30 days, it's almost like you're a new person. And they did studies on people who didn't go out and enjoy nature. They did people who just watched nature on television or on a screen. And then they did studies with people who actually were physically in nature. And even the people who were viewing nature on a screen saw small changes of decreased depression, stress, and anxiety.
Wow. Because maybe like your mind cannot distinguish between what's real and what's not real. Obviously, when you're in nature, like more of your senses and receptors get information that, okay, we are in nature. But if I'm just watching nature, that's all, at least I'm receiving that information through my eyes that, okay, I'm in nature. So that already is proven to help.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, very interesting.
Very interesting. And especially for the people who actually go outside and enjoy time in nature, you just feel this sense of peace and belonging. No matter where you are in nature, there's always some sort of sense and peace and belonging in nature. Because if you think of how our bodies are even created, energy is never created nor destroyed. And so if that's the case, then when we are formed in our mother's wombs, our moms are eating food from the earth, hopefully as unprocessed as possible, or at least what they have resources of. And all of these things come from the earth. And so our bodies physically are of the earth. And so it just makes so much sense for us to not live cooped up in four walls and to enjoy even just the sight and the smell of nature.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that as well. I also practiced it myself, being in nature, ground myself, being barefoot, all of that.
Yep.
Like that's what we were meant to be. That's where we were meant to be. I would like to segue into a bit of a different topic. So we talked about like fears, insecurities, why people go to the gym. And what I have seen is that what most people struggle with is self-love. What's your experience with self-love in your journey and maybe in your client's journey?
Yeah. I struggled with severe body dysmorphia, and especially I think my self-love journey started when I was sexually assaulted at 15, because I remember in that moment just feeling so vulnerable. I felt as if my body was not my own anymore. It was almost like everything was just stripped from me. And in that moment, I was so discontent with myself, the boundaries that I had, not only for myself, but even with the people that I loved in my life, not being able to hold boundaries. And I was just heavily discontent. After bodybuilding, I think that I used my first competition kind of as a way to love myself a little bit more and feel more at home in my body. And then afterward, stepping on stage, having that full adrenaline rush of feeling like you've reached that destination, it all came crumbling down when I experienced all the bloating again. And so I had such bad body dysmorphia at that point. And
after the competition.
And I would look in the mirror and it was like, this is not me. This does not look like me. I don't remember myself looking this way. And I'm talking like dramatic change from 113, 114 pounds to 140 pounds.
Over what period of time?
Over 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was just significant change in such a short amount of time where I felt like I couldn't even keep up. And I was very confused, very just disconnected from my body. And at some point, getting out of that, I started asking myself, okay, what are things that I can do, even if I don't believe it, just to feel more confident? And so I actually wrote on a piece of paper, I wrote no more self-judgment, and I put it on the wall next to my door. And so every single day as I walked out of my door, I saw that posted on my wall. And so every day I would walk out and I would say, no self-judgment. And then as I started learning more about how powerful your words are, I changed it to self-love and self-acceptance. And that helped really build my confidence. And just seeing those words and seeing affirmations, I started posting little sticky notes on my mirrors, writing myself notes so that every time I opened my phone or opened a notebook, I would see, I am confident, I'm worthy, I'm loved, I'm fearless, I'm courageous, I'm strong. Seeing those every single day, it taps into your subconscious and it slowly starts to rewire your subconscious and your neural pathways to tell you these are true. And even if you don't believe them at first, you start to believe them because you're seeing them every day. So that's something that really, really helped me.
Like your subconscious is there to create an environment that's familiar to you. So if your subconscious feels that like I need to stay big or I need to be big because that's the way you feel safe and secure, right? So many people reflected back on their childhood where they've seen some domestic violence and the way they internalized it, that, okay, the only way I can feel safe and protect mom or dad or whatever is if I am big. And when you're a kid, you don't understand what's big, what's fat, what's healthy, what's not healthy. You just want to be big, right? Mm-hmm. And if you are not really working on those parts of your subconscious, even if you achieve significant changes externally, you're always going to fall back onto that pattern the moment you allow yourself to relax, when your true belief about yourself is going to come to the surface, and then you are going to remanifest that again in a physical form, right? And so that's why like subconscious work, I think is very important. Mm-hmm. And what you are doing here is that slowly you are rewiring your own belief about yourself with these affirmations that you put out there that you see all the time. Essentially what you're doing is self-hypnosis, that like we are, as you said, like energy kind of like travels through us, and we are responsible for like how we direct that energy, how we channel that energy. We are the medium of that energy. And if you put that energy into positive things for yourself that comes back at you, then this is how you can like reshape some of those initial beliefs that you have about yourself. How effective do you think it is? That, okay, it worked for you. After how much time did you start experiencing some change? Because some people may look at it like, oh, like what? Like I'm going to see the world and I'm going to become like healthy again, or I'm going to love myself again. Leave me alone.
You have to believe it. And I think that self-belief and that self-trust is huge. It's kind of like what you were saying earlier is when you go to the gym, you notice yourself getting strong, and then seeing that you're getting strong, you're like, okay, I am strong, which then makes that connection of, okay, this happened to me because I wasn't strong. Well, now I am strong, so that's not going to happen again. Although that might be true or that might not be true, you still make the correlation of I am strong. But I think when people go to the gym and they find their strength in the gym rather than within themselves, not necessarily in their muscles, but truly within themselves, then that's where true strength is. Your strength isn't in how much you can lift. It's within your heart, within who you are to your core. So it comes through self-belief. And what I really want people to know is you have the power to choose what your belief is. And if you feel empowered knowing that down to your core you are strong and you are capable, that's what's going to really get you to the point where you can make these big shifts and big changes in your life, even small shifts and changes in your life. So seeing, it doesn't necessarily have to be seeing I am confident on the wall, right? It can be something so small as you're driving and you're like, wow, I'm a good driver. Yes, you are a good driver. And that made you feel good. So I do think that this is something that will work for everybody, because if you are driving and you're like, I'm a terrible driver, I'm probably going to get into an accident tomorrow. You probably will. It's all based on energy, but it's also based on your mind. And our minds are very powerful. We've even seen studies where people are stronger when they hold better beliefs. So someone says, I don't remember who did this, but if I hold out my hand and you try to push down my hand, but I say I am strong, my hand will stay here and you won't be able to bring it down. But if I say I'm weak, I'm scared, my hand will drop. So I do think that this is a universal thing.
So what do you suggest to someone who is ready to change and they want to change, but they just don't believe in themselves?
If you don't believe in yourself, then you have to look in the mirror and ask, how bad do you want to change? If how bad you want to change is further than your belief that you can change, then you will make small shifts in order to get to a point where you decide, okay, maybe I can change. And even if it's starting to go to the gym and seeing those small little shifts in your body and in your physique, or even you see small little mental changes, celebrate those small little changes. And I think that this is where a lot of people go wrong, is they'll see these small little changes, but then they'll look on social media and they'll say, well, this person has lost 15 pounds in 6 weeks. Why can't I do that? And then they'll beat themselves up when, okay, but look at your list of accomplishments. You talk to yourself differently. You have more love for yourself. You have more love for the people around you. Isn't that a really, really significant change in just 6 weeks? You have no idea how they started internally. But if you are making those small incremental shifts within yourself, celebrate those small wins, and then ultimately those big changes will come.
I think that's really powerful. And I think a lot of people make that mistake, that they measure themselves to the future state, what they want to accomplish, versus the state where they started. So it's way more rewarding when you see the progress you have made and not that how far you are still from your goal. And the moment you like take that step back, like, okay, this is where I was, this is where I am right now. Oh, I actually did a lot of work here and I'm still like freaking far from where I want to go. But if I look at that, that's going to make me feel like shit. But if I look at how far I have already come, that's going to make me feel good if I actually put the work in.
That actually reminds me, something else I started doing, I want to say 2 years ago, is I started writing in a confirmation journal. And in this confirmation journal, it's all of the small little celebrations and micro celebrations that no one else sees. It's just for me. And that way, anytime I start to doubt myself and I start to have this unbelief that I can't do it, I can't do it all, I can't work out, I can't be successful in this, I look back at this journal and you can reread all of the amazing accomplishments, even the small micro ones where someone else might think they're silly. Those little small shifts have made a big difference in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I need to get better at that as well.
It's powerful.
Because again, like we are our worst critics, and then you have this envisioned picture of yourself where you are going to be within this time frame, and if you are not there, you just beat yourself up. So you need to be compassionate, you need to be understanding. Of course, you need to do your best, but then measure yourself to your past state and celebrate the small wins. And I think I don't do that enough. But I think like most people don't. So right. I think that's a great reminder. There's one thing still about the fitness part that I wanted to touch on. So the biggest change in your life happened, and most of the self-reflection happened when you didn't feel great in your skin, when you felt bloated, and then you were gaining a lot of weight, you were struggling with body dysmorphia, and like things were just kind of like crumbling down. And in your social media, I've seen this term coming up so many times, which I don't fully understand what it is yet. You talk a lot about intuitive eating. What do you mean by that?
I love this. I love this topic. When I started bodybuilding, I was tracking my macronutrients and my micronutrients, mainly my macronutrients. And I had this idea of, okay, well, if it fits in my macros, it's good, which is not true. We have macronutrients, which are protein, carbs, and fats, but we also have a lot of micronutrients, which is vitamins and minerals. And these are things that when you eat, they help different functions in your body. So they can improve your mental clarity. They can improve your overall fitness. They can improve your heart health. They can improve your kidney health, all of these different functions that we need to survive. So when I was bodybuilding, I learned what foods had what kinds of macronutrients. So how much protein is in chicken, how much protein is in Greek yogurt. And then coming out of bodybuilding after my third competition, I decided that I was done tracking my food and I wanted to be eating intuitively. And what I mean by intuitively is I want to eat to feel good while also achieving the goals physically that I want to achieve, to not only feel my best self, but also look my best self. And when you look in the mirror and you see what you see, you end up wanting to nourish your body even more. And you end up telling yourself more positive things. And so by intuitively eating, by being able to figure out what foods are working best for your body, what are most serving you, not only in just your physique goals, but also your internal health and wellness, that's how you're going to be able to also nourish your brain and speak kindly to yourself. So it's crazy how all of these things are so webbed in and interconnected, but it's also intuitive. It makes a lot of sense that all of these things are connected.
I was speaking to someone recently where we covered his recovery from coma, and he was talking about that he intuitively knew what kind of foods are good for him, right? And if I bring an example from my life, there are certain places and restaurants that people love, and on paper it's like perfect food, perfect macros, great ingredients, organic, whatever. But I just feel it's not good for me. And like, there is this one particular restaurant in Bali that most of my friends love. I'm the only one who doesn't eat it because 2 days later, I feel depressed for like a day. I just noticed that I start having more negative thoughts. I just feel bad about myself. Like I question everything. And I'm like, where did this come from? And I noticed the pattern that whenever I had that food, 2 days later, I had this. Like, okay, let me try it again. I had that food, then it happened again. Like, okay, clearly there is something in this that my body doesn't want. So I think the main message there is to listen to yourself and see how it makes you feel, not just in the moment,
But
after, right? Because maybe that, I don't know, if I eat like a big chunk of chocolate, it's going to make me feel great now, but then after that, if it's going to make me feel like shit, then probably it's not worth it. And you also should ask the question, is this aligned with your long-term goals?
Right.
Yeah. What habit has contributed to most of your success?
Mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
By taking a second to just pause and listen, whether it's listening to your intuition, your guide, your internal guide, or even just sitting with a meal and thinking, okay, my intentions for this meal is for this food to nourish my body, make me feel good, strong, and healthy. Even small changes like this really, really push the needle in everything that I do.
And looking back, what was the mistake that set you back the most? And what have you learned from it?
Trying to live life as if it was a race. Trying to do everything all at once, going and thinking that it was success, going from one place to another with little to no time to take a moment to breathe even, rushing through my meals, not taking time to even call the people I love, and not really truly feeling present and connected to what was around me in the present moment.
And what was the best decision you have made for the quality of your life?
Choosing change.
Elaborate.
I was
What
like,
kind
do
of
we
change?
have time? Do we have time to elaborate?
Yeah, of course.
Change can mean many things. It can be deciding that one decision is going to be, you just know when one decision might just be a better alternative for you, but you might be scared to take that leap. So eliminating the fear, recognizing that fear is just a doorway rather than letting fear be a stop for you. Fear is a doorway because you know that once you embrace the fear, your life might change for the better, but recognizing that when you do make that change, you can always go back, but when you make that change and you experience better, you won't want to go back. And I think that that can be scary because we feel so comfortable in what we do know that we don't want to change and embrace that newness. So
I love that. It reminded me of two things. One is the regret minimization framework from Jeff Bezos. When you arrive at the fork at the road, you need to choose whether you're going to take path A or path B. Always choose the one that you are going to regret the least trying, even if you're not going to succeed there. And the other thought that came to mind was something I forgot. Hold on, what was it? Oh yeah, okay, I remember now. That the second thing is that sometimes when you choose not to change, it's because things are not too bad. So sometimes you're actually better off when things are worse, because then you don't really have a choice, but you have to change. But if things are like, oh yeah, like this, I don't like this apartment, it's okay, like it's a bit moldy, and you know, like the paint is like peeling off the wall, but the walls are still standing, you don't want to live there, right? Like make something to change. But if the building was collapsing, then okay, like this is really bad, I need to change. So just be aware of this, that people find still comfort in familiarity, that they are familiar with it, and don't let fear to be the dictator in these moments, because there might be a so much better place for you to land if you have the courage to make those steps and embrace that change.
something I had to remember and come to the realization of, is you deserve so much more than to settle. And I think that a lot of us are just settling because it's familiar, it's comfortable. But when you decide that, even if it's just something so small, I deserve just a little bit better than what I'm getting right now, then that small little realization ends up opening a whole world of opportunity.
There was another interesting thought I heard recently. If you don't change it, you choose it.
Mm-hmm.
And that just like hit me so hard, because sometimes the change scares me and sometimes change scares people. But the moment you don't change it, you actually chose it. And then you don't have the right to complain about your situation or your body or your mental state if you don't have the courage to embrace that change and do something about it.
What really gets people to that point of recognizing what you're not changing, you're choosing, is when you have someone in your life that's asking you. When you start complaining, maybe being a little bit negative about the things that you're experiencing, someone in your life goes, okay, is there anything that you're doing to make that different, make your situation different? And it's like, it's such a simple question. Like, are you doing anything different? Are you actively, doing anything to change your circumstances? And it's like, damn, no, I'm not.
So that's another testament to having the right people around you can make or break your life.
Yep.
Because if you have that friend who has the balls to call you out on your bullshit, that's the friend that you want to keep around, not the one that's going to always soothe you and like, yeah, it's okay, you're fine. You still can weigh like 300 pounds or whatever, right? That's not the friend that you want. You want the friend who actually wants the best for you. And you're the friend who wants the best for you and they love you enough, they dare to risk offending you in the moment for your greater good. And as you were speaking, it reminded me to a conversation that I had here years ago in Uluwatu. And this friend of mine, her name is Alexandria, called me out on my shit because I was just like keep on complaining about my job. And then, I don't know, like at some point she was like, stop. I'm like, okay. She was like, we have talked about this. You are telling me the exact same thing week over week. What have you done? I'm like, actually, I don't think I've done anything, right? And that's all what I needed, just to face reality. Like, oh, actually, I do complain, and oh, I haven't done anything about it, and that was the trigger for me to make some changes.
I think this is a very serious conversation because I have spent a lot of time with a lot of people who will constantly complain and they'll say, well, just let me vent, just let me vent. But you have to understand when you are going back and complaining about the exact same thing over and over again, you're not only complaining about the exact same thing like a broken record, but you're also actually deep diving into that reality. And you are bringing that reality to your present over and over and over. And it's this reality that I am discontent with where I'm at, and I'm deciding not to do anything to change that. And it's like, you can keep doing that, but you are continuing and you are not going to see any progression in happiness and levels of happiness unless you decide, you know what, I'm tired of hearing myself complain about this, so I'm gonna make a change. And no one can do it for you.
Yeah, it's hard to get to that realization sometimes.
Yeah.
So like having the right people, that's a blessing. And having the self-awareness, that's already a blessing. That's where everything starts. As we are coming to an end, is there any message that you would like to put out there that we haven't touched on, something that you would love people to know about?
I've touched on this already. But just to say it again, we are all the ones in control of our reality. And if we want something better for ourselves, if we truly believe and know that we deserve more and we deserve better, the power is up to you. And you can always, there is so much opportunity in this world. There's just so much abundance. And you are able to tap into that abundance. And you are so deserving of that abundance. And I truly believe this for everybody. If you want to live well, if you want to live happy, and if you want to live healthy, that is also available to you.
I love that. How can people find you?
I think every platform, my social media is just Brittany Brunck.
Cool. Yeah. Make sure you guys go do that. I love what you do. I love how you are combining kind of like Western science, external information and knowledge with the internal work. I think there's like a very powerful combination there.
Thank you.
Like I'm a big believer in what you are doing for your clients and for yourself as well. So yeah, thank you for coming on. I think this was great, and I think people got a lot out of this.
Thank you so much for having me.